Kia ora, I'm Chelsea Daniels, and this is The Front Page, a daily podcast presented by the New Zealand Herald. UK police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor on suspicion of committing misconduct in public office. It comes after allegations the former prince shared confidential information with former financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein while he was a UK trade envoy, a role which he held from 2001 to 2011. Police searched his Sandringham home and former Royal Lodge residence today. He's since been released after about 12 hours of questioning. Today on The Front Page, royal correspondent Gavin Grey joins us from Windsor to break down the latest on this disgraced royal. First off, Gavin, paint us a picture of what's happened over there overnight.
It's been an extraordinary few hours. The former Prince Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, is 66 today. The last thing he expected was some burly police officers to be banging on the door at 8 a.m. They went there to formally arrest him, take him into custody and question him about misconduct in public office. What does that mean? Well, this isn't anything to do with the allegations that Virginia Giuffre or Virginia Roberts made against him. This is that when he was trade envoy, which was a sort of unofficial post, if you like, Chelsea, that it was effectively that he saw decisions and paperwork from this government that had not been made public. The allegations are that he then told Jeffrey Epstein, the late disgraced financier, about what the government was going to announce. And of course, to certain business people, that's worth a lot of money. If they know what the decision is going to be before it's made and announced, that can be worth a lot of money. The allegations are that Andrew was therefore ferrying this information either knowingly or unknowingly to Jeffrey Epstein. He says he's done nothing wrong. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor says, I have done nothing knowingly wrong. But plenty of people in this country find it amazing that that information should, if it did, go via email to Epstein.
And we know this all because of the Epstein files, don't we?
We do. They have released a whole tranche of files, of course, and Andrew is in quite a lot of them, along with his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, and a lot of very important, influential businessmen who have made a lot of money. And that's where all this sort of hooks in together. Interesting that this arrest should have been made because the police could have quite simply contacted Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and said, can you, at an agreed time, come into the police station for a chat? And of course, we, the media, wouldn't have known the first thing about that because he would have organised to go in either at night or, when people weren't waiting for something to happen. As it was, the media were outside Sandringham. They had been for several days, and all of a sudden it exploded. Now, Andrew was in custody for just under 12 hours. He has now returned home. A picture has surfaced of him trying to what looks like duck in the back seat of the car that he's in, looking completely hollowed out. This isn't just a come down for somebody that thought he was so important in the royal family. This is a complete, total, utter humiliation, and it could be about to get a lot worse. The next steps could be the police say, thanks for talking to us. Actually, we don't want to talk to you anymore. The evidence isn't there, or we found evidence that clears you, or he could be charged. And that would put it all into a different ballgame.
It's funny you bring up that photo because I've noticed that the BBC has been running it almost consistently all day today, that photo. And if you haven't seen it, you'll know it when you see it kind of thing. This all seems quite unprecedented, is it?
I think it probably is in modern times. I've been covering the royals for over 35 years, and I've certainly nothing seen anything like it. The only time one can think of the royals, any senior member of the royal family getting into a bit of hot bother was about 20 years ago. Believe it or not, Princess Anne pleaded guilty to having a dangerous dog because it bit a member of the public. But this is off the scale to what we've got today. Here are some really serious allegations of national security that have been made about Andrew. The Queen's most favorite son, it was recorded. 8th in line to the throne, the king's younger brother. And you know, Chelsea, the amazing thing is, if this goes to court, then the Crown Prosecution Service will be prosecuting. And that word crown means the king. The people representing the king will be prosecuting Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. If it goes that far, as I said, he has denied any wrongdoing. But there is a lot more to this, Chelsea, because something like 6 to 8 other police forces in the UK are also looking at other investigations around Jeffrey Epstein. And one of those is looking at some 80 or nearly 90 flights that came into the UK or left from the UK in his private aeroplane. And the concern is that some of those flights may have been trafficking young women or girls. And of course, did Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor know about that? He says not.
It's funny you bring up, so Andrew is still 8th in line to the throne. At what point does he completely get shafted by the royal family?
I would imagine it's got to be a matter of minutes, wouldn't you? But at the moment, officially, he is still in 8th in line to the throne. I can't imagine King Charles III would allow that for very long. He stripped him of all the titles. He has kicked him out of his house. Now we get these further allegations. What is there left? There's that left, that he's still in the line of succession. Believe it or not, though, it has to go through some legislation and it has to go through things. So, it may be some time in the coming, but I'm absolutely sure that they are looking to do that now. Another thing I think the king is desperate to do, he was out on official engagements today, meeting and greeting people. And as he got out the car, people were shouting, "What did you know about Andrew? What's your reaction to this?" That's been commonplace now for the last few months whenever he's out and about. And that can't go on. I don't think that cannot be allowed to go on. And so I think we are going to see some decisive action. And that is why I think the king has been quite decisive so far. But this is a situation that is completely new. I think, do you know what? I think the last time a senior member of the royal family was detained, we might be looking almost back to King Charles I, and he was executed.
Absolutely. And I mean, in terms of the 8th in line to the throne, the likelihood of him ever coming close. I mean, the average age of a monarch these days is about 100, right? So, I mean, it's not, but it's largely symbolic, isn't it? In terms of King Charles, what has he actually officially said, I suppose?
There was a statement out today, and there were 2 key bits in it, for me at least. In the middle of it all, in its own paragraph, was that phrase, "No one is above the law." And I think that's key, because that says, Andrew, you're going to be like anybody else in this process. And I think that's possibly why the police didn't just say, "Come and see us," under cover of darkness. I think that's why there was the big door knock. Incidentally, it is said that King Charles had no idea this was going to happen. There are some people who are doubting that. The Home Office, the government department that looks after the police, they did know beforehand. So it's interesting that that was there and this tack was taken. But King Charles has got a very difficult act now, and that is trying to separate family and monarchy. One often talks about the royal family, but of course, family is one thing, and you can't do anything about a sister or a brother you don't particularly like. But you can try, as he is doing, I think, and isolate the monarchy from the scandal. But every time the communications people, the royal family, think they get ahead of this, Chelsea, it comes up and it overwhelms them again. And as I said, if this investigation goes on, as I think it will, this could go on for years.
Well, I'm the expert in a way because I've been totally exonerated. That's very nice. So I can actually speak about it very nicely. I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's a very, very sad. To me, it's a very sad thing. When I see that, it's a very sad thing to see it, and to see what's going on with his brother, who's obviously coming to our country very soon, and he's a fantastic man, the king. So I think it's a very sad thing. It's really interesting because nobody used to speak about Epstein when he was alive, but now they speak. But I'm the one that can talk about it because I've been totally exonerated. I did nothing.
Is he ever likely to face prison?
I think there is that possibility. Personally, I think it's unlikely, but it rather depends what police find in these searches. So we know they conducted a search at the current house that Andrew is living in. Incidentally, it was the house where Prince Philip spent his last days as well, in the Sandringham estate in East England. Andrew is waiting to move into a house that's being done up for him, much, much smaller. They've been searching there. That search has now concluded. There is another search happening not far from here, actually, in Windsor. And that was Andrew's old house, this massive mansion that he was allowed to live in until eventually he was told he had to get out. And they are searching that. And the reason, incidentally, is because not all of Andrew's stuff has been moved out. And I am absolutely sure they'll be looking for computers, computer records, emails, printouts, mobile phone records, all of that, to see what that communication was between Epstein and Andrew, and to see what information, if any, what documents, if any, might have been passed over. Now, here is one crucial thought about this for you, Chelsea. Here in the UK, we have sacked an ambassador to America, Lord Mandelson, because of the Epstein files. We have now had a very close relative of the monarch, somebody in the royal family, arrested. If you can arrest a prince, could you also arrest a president? Plenty of people are thinking, what's happening in America? Why haven't any of the businessmen who were named by the women who said that they were trafficked, why haven't they even been talked to? And is President Trump as squeaky clean in this as he says he is? He says, I'm completely exonerated. I've got nothing to hide. But so much has been redacted in those Epstein files. People are thinking, is that exactly the case?
It certainly does seem like the UK is doing far more than the US in terms of these Epstein files. I mean, that must play quite well for Sir Keir Starmer.
Yes, I think so. I think it plays probably quite well for the country, actually, and very proud of our legal processes, as, of course, New Zealand is as well. And I think it also feeds into the narrative that King Charles is trying to get this sorted. You know, he doesn't want to get directly involved because he's not a solicitor or a barrister or anything. But he's saying, look, treat Andrew as you would anyone else. And believe you me, these custody suites that Andrew would have been kept in are not cozy. There would have been no lap of luxury. And for a man who's, everyone I've spoken to who has worked for him or knows him says arrogant, says full of himself, could be very rude to people. This is some mighty, mighty come down. What it'll mean for Sarah Ferguson, well, she's kind of disappeared anyway. We believe she's in the Middle East. But what it'll mean for the two daughters, Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice, that's another matter. At the moment, they're still in the royal family. There are rumors, though, that Prince William and Princess Catherine think the whole family, that side of the family, should be, I think, cut adrift a bit. It's going to be very, very difficult, very, very painful. And that's before we've heard from these other police services around the UK that have got these other investigations going on as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it could very well become a lot worse for him. This is the tip of the iceberg. What's been the reaction of the British public to this news?
Well, I can't tell you how many camera crews there were outside Buckingham Palace earlier, and probably still are. This has been a worldwide story. I'd be talking, as well to newsrooms around the world about this. It has been an amazing thing, and I think part of it is Andrew has never been that universally popular. There's that old adage, isn't there? Be nice to people on your way up because you might need them on your way down. And we're seeing somebody that has really suffered from that, I think. And he seems to be pretty short of friends at the moment. And people love that story, that here is somebody who had everything he ever wanted. He probably never washed the plate, He was somebody who really was born into a massive life of grace and favor, all of a sudden brought back down to earth with a massive, massive bump. And even though he's saying nothing to do with me, didn't do any wrongdoing, etc., etc. There is just this snowball effect now of allegation after allegation after allegation. And that is what is so captivating, dare I say it, about this story.
And I've seen comments from Virginia Giuffre's family as well. And of course, you mentioned her before. She's one of the women at the forefront of the Epstein files and the Epstein abuse allegations, who said that she was raped by Andrew several times as a minor. They've come out and said that she, in retrospect, is doing it for every rape victim around the world. And she died of suicide in April last year. But she died with people still saying that she was making things up.
Yes. And today, still, I think fervent supporters of Andrew will probably say, oh, he's done nothing wrong and this and that. And he denies ever meeting her still. But the family are saying, yes, it was her persistence. What was it? There were two of us here and we both know the truth, but one of us is prepared to say it, sort of thing, was her big quote, something along those lines. And here we are seeing her defiance that she wasn't going to be quiet. She wasn't going to be kept quiet. And even though it was very important and very powerful people, Prince Andrew at the time, but also Epstein and a lot of very senior business people in that upper echelon circle of Epstein's circle, even though all of those things, and she probably felt terribly isolated at the time, this is the ripple effect from what she's done. The release of the Epstein files in particular has been that. But as I said, this arrest today was not about any sexual allegations. This was entirely about the fact that he was privy to information, but did he then give that information to other people for whatever reason? And if he has, that's a very, very serious offence and one that people in this country will not forgive him for.
Good, he deserves it. Should have been arrested a long time ago, quite frankly, I think. Just abused his position completely. It's the right thing for the victims.
I want to see everybody on the files arrested. Everybody that was involved with Epstein, anybody that was doing anything illegal, immoral. I want them all arrested. I want them all tried.
I think it's good that he's been arrested. It's good that he's paid for what he's done.
Now, lastly, Gavin, paint me a picture. You've been a royal correspondent for, you said, 35 years now. It doesn't, you're doing well. It doesn't look like you've been in the game for that long. But paint me a picture. What happens? Do you get a text message from a guard or something saying the police are here? Do you, how do you get involved and how do you know that these things are happening?
There are people who have worked for the royal household. Don't forget, lots of palaces, lots of houses. The staff are very large in number. They are also not very well paid. Now, I'm not pointing the finger at any one member of staff or anything, but by and large, some of them do, meet journalists and get taken out for dinner and stuff. So there's an element of that. There's the former staff as well, who might not feel they've been treated very well. And I dare say there are a few who work directly for Andrew who might feel that way. So you get those. Then, of course, yes, people within the police force, within the security service as well. It's contacts, it's having, knowing others as well. And also, I have to say, the royal correspondents are pretty good at sort of, sharing things as well occasionally. But it is an extraordinary job as a correspondent. One of the most unusual roles, I think, because you are looking so much at a family. And of course, all families have members who are slightly odd or slightly get into trouble or anything like that. But you're also looking at the monarchy, and the way in which the monarchy operates is absolutely fascinating. And it was Prince Philip who called it the firm, like it was a business. And lots of people said, oh, that was not the right thing to say. But in a sense, it is a business. And if they lose the support of the UK people, if they lose the support of the Commonwealth member countries as well, then I think the game is up.
Thanks for joining us, Gavin.
Lovely to speak to you again, Chelsea. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of The Front Page. You can read more about today's stories and extensive news coverage at nzherald.co.nz. The Front Page is hosted and produced by me, Chelsea Daniels. Kane Dickey is our studio operator, Richard Martin, our producer and editor, and our executive producer is Jane Yee. Follow The Front Page on the iHeart app or wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next time for another look beyond the headlines.